This is season number 19 of Bass Talk Live with Matt Pengrack. BTL is presented by Bass Cat Boats, Aftco, Strike King Lures, Sunline, Big Bite Baits, Spro, X-Zone Lures, Gamakatsu, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, Pro Guide Batteries, Beatdown Outdoors, Shoreline Boat and RV Repair, and Omnia Fishing. Hit them with the hook, Jeffries.
PTL coming at you.
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we are going to talk about bass fishing, and we have a new Red Crest champion. And I think it was Ric Flair who said, to be the man, you have to beat the man. It's a little homage there, Mark Jeffries. Big wrestling fan. Well, in the case of Lake Norman, Brian Thrift is the man, and no one was able to beat the man. In fact, Brian Thrift went out on Lake Norman in Red Crest and pretty much dominated. And I think he did it in an intentional fashion. 17-12, 15-6, 13-10, 46-12 total for the 3 days that they did the combined weight. Alton Jones Jr. in second, 42-6, followed by Edwin Evers, Jacob Wheeler, Matt Lee, Casey Ashley, Dustin Connell, Adrian Avina, Randy Howell, and Ott Defo. And listen, I was not 100% positive how this format was going to work out going into Red Crest this year. Obviously, MLF and the BPT going with a 5-fish format, cumulative weight. And I got to admit, I really like how they did it. I really like how they did Red Crest. They had 2 days, full field, 40 anglers, cut to the top 20. Then the weight zeroed. And you're like, oh, here we go. Here we go. The weights are going to zero. But then they did 3 cumulative days. So really what you ended up with was a 5-day marathon. If you saw the interviews from these guys that they were giving by the end of it, they felt like they'd been through the ringer. Like you could tell that they had been in a heavyweight battle. And they did 3 cumulative day weights, which I really liked, because if you, and granted, he might have done things a little bit differently had it just been a 1-day shootout, but Thrift doesn't win this thing if it just goes down to day 3. Like I said, neither here nor there. But great job, Brian Thrift, using a lot of history on Lake Norman to get the job done. $300,000. And everyone's saying, listen, Aaron's saying, I see him here, the land of the dinks. Not very entertaining. The format was interesting. Listen, guys, I freaking loved it. You know why? Because I like spotted bass, and I like Nico rigs and wacky rigs and docks and the guys that are trying to figure out how to catch a bigger one. I thought it actually was incredibly entertaining, and I watched more of this Red Crest than any other Red Crest that I've watched in the past. So we've got a great show today. I want to get our guest's thoughts on this, because he has fished in a Forest Wood Cup before, which is, well, it has nothing. It's not Red Crest. It is a championship event, though, at FLW before it turned to it. That would be none other than the Bass Tank's John Soukup. John, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule in between Bassmaster Elite Series events and running like 6 businesses to jump on BTL for the morning.
Yeah, getting ready for the Classic. But one thing that's really cool about Brian Thrift is when I was fishing the Costa Championship, there's a little diner. It was in Paris Landing there in Kentucky Lake. There's a little diner there, and we didn't know until that morning that on day 3, everybody that made day 3 actually qualified for the Forest Wood Cup. It was kind of a unique way that the math worked out. And I got on the phone with my wife, and I said, hey, I qualified for the Forest Wood Cup. And she said, what's that, another tournament? You know, she has no idea what it is. And Brian Thrift was sitting right there, and he said, tell her that's $10,000. So that was a pretty cool little deal, and it's like a little memory that I have in my life. But I mean, congratulations to Brian. It's about time, right, that he won one of these big deals.
Yeah, well, he won the last Forest Wood Cup before it went away. But for the longest time, he was the guy who hadn't won the championship, and then we're like, oh, he won the very last one, and then you had the split and all sorts of things. But we've seen, and it's interesting, I actually did an episode of The Cull with Dave Mercer on the Facts of Fishing, and we weren't going to run it for a couple weeks because we record a couple in advance on that, and it was, has technology mitigated or neutralized the home lake advantage. And it's a real interesting discussion that we have over it. I think it's a hybrid of kind of yes and kind of no, but that's the beauty of the call, is you can make your own decision. But then Thrift, who is very adept, very up to date with his electronics, I think would you agree? I mean, he has like 6 screens on his boat, doesn't he?
Man, I think Brian may be one of those guys that doesn't need it, but can use it when he wants to, but doesn't even need it.
That's what I'm saying.
Got that skill set.
But he knows his technology and knows how to use it, and he's the best on the lake. And this was an absolute perfect storm, especially based on the time of the year, where, I mean, he went in bar none as the favorite and then came out as the definitive champion with a 4+ pound victory. I mean, that's had to surprise no one.
Yeah, no, I don't think anybody thought that he wasn't going to be right there in the mix from the beginning, from the jump. The thing that's about Brian that's unique is also, was it just 2 years ago at Eufaula, the Red Crescent Eufaula? Remember how he dominated that thing? I mean, just flat out was blowing him away. And now they did some weight clearing and stuff on that deal, and then he ended up running out of fish on the final day, and it got taken from him. But the way this format comes in, his day one of the cumulative weight, he pops off like 17 pounds. He just kind of he rode that 17-12, all the way to the end.
It is, and I think it's interesting. A lot of discussion on going from the every fish counts to the big bass, and I think, or the your top 5 fish. And I think this was a perfect example as to why it works when you go to a spotted bass fishery. We saw Matt Lee, I think, catch a 5'10", Alton Jones Jr. catch a spot over 5. Those 3+ pound spotted bass were absolutely critical. And you also saw some of the guys also, throwing 6+ inch soft swim baits, like mag draft style baits, or the new Berkeley one that's out, or the that style bait. You saw glide baits come into play when those guys are hooked up on a 3+ pound spot. I think it added to some of that drama, because instead of just catching 2 1/2-pounders, which are very plentiful all across Lake Norman, that now added to the holy cow, he's hooked up on this fish and it's behind a dock post, and this is literally what's going to get him to the championship round. Because I like the way they did it. They went from 40 to 20 and then zeroed it, and then went from 20 to 15 and then 15 to 10 and then 10 to the ultimate champion. So I thought that was a really cool way. And like I said, those guys looked tired by the end of the 5 days. You know how it is to fish for 5 days. You fished in a championship event like that, John. I mean, 5 days of those decision making. You've done the Forest Wood Cup before. You're zapped after a couple days. I couldn't imagine what 5 days of that decision making is like.
Oh, 100%. Then that's the cool part about these are the top level guys on their game when they're catching them. The decisions, the little bitty decisions, are so much more powerful. So much more powerful.
All right, let's get into what has been going on in your world. Listen, I am tired of fielding questions about John Soukup and what happened in the first 2 Elite Series tournaments. And so we'll just get that elephant out of the room right away. We had Bradley Hallman on, who talked about his first 2 Elite Series tournaments. I think he's sitting in 55th, but we've had 2 under the belt. Your first 2, I haven't even really talked to you about what went down in those 2, but no checks in the first 2, but the good thing is you still have 75. You still have over 80% of the schedule ahead of you, and only 2 in the rearview mirror.
Well, fortunately, Bass decided to pay like some consolation prizes, so I did get a check in the second.
Oh, did you get a baby check?
I got a $2,500 check.
Oh, okay. There you go. You're making money. Just money's just pouring in for the Elite Series.
Yeah. That's like putting your finger in a big old hole that's blowing out. No, I mean, as far as what happened, I haven't really talked to anybody about much. Just a lot of overthinking, a lot of using my head instead of my gut, trying to outsmart the fish, kind of deal. Florida, I knew exactly what to do. Had planned on doing exactly what it took to win. and I literally never went and even tried, never attempted to, for whatever reason.
Wait, you didn't go scope at all at Okeechobee?
I did, but I did it in the wrong canals. But I had intended on doing it right where it was one. And you can ask Bradley, even going into it, I was like, "Hey, man, I got to go check this." And I just, like I said, I wasn't in the right mental space, and didn't go try it. And so, what people also got to understand is that Okeechobee's huge. I mean, it's huge. And so, first day of practice, I really got onto some fish that were biting, some swim jigs and swimming baits, and like there wasn't a need for me to do much anything else. So by the time day 3 of practice hit, I was building off of it, and I found the area where a lot of the guys were at, and I wanted to start there, but I was really just uncomfortable to mix it up with everybody, and so I tried to stay away from everybody until about noon the final day, and I was like, I'm going in. I don't care who's there, and I poked my head in. There's like camera boats everywhere, and I caught 15.5 pounds in about 2 or 3 hours. I did the thing that you're not supposed to do, and I went and I just stayed away from everybody.
What do you mean you felt uncomfortable mixing it up?
I'm not the guy that enjoys parking lots. Like I'm talking about, dude, you park your boat and you're rubbing boats with everybody else. I mean, there's a 40-acre area and there's 30, 40 boats in there. I, I've got over that now. You get one spanking one time and it's like, okay, and also, the cool thing about the elites, the thing that I wasn't expecting to be is the professionalism in the field. Like the guys, pretty much it was like a come on in to everybody. You know what I mean? This is what it is. And I really didn't, I didn't really want to have to deal with that day 1, day 2. But like I said, by the time day 2 comes around, and I mean, I caught 10, 15 fish on day 1. For some reason, they were just all 1-pounders. And so my bigger fish kind of disappeared. My moving fish kind of disappeared. And the whole time I'm like, you need to go in with all the boats and just go in. Like that's what's going in my head, or, that's my gut. And I'm just like trying to fight it. And, so lesson learned there.
Wow. I never thought. So, I mean, you learned a valuable rookie lesson the very first day of competition. I mean, you're thrown in and having to make on the water decisions that put you in an uncomfortable spot.
Yeah. I mean, hindsight, but during that time, I really didn't lack any confidence. I couldn't figure it out somewhere else. I mean, I caught fish away from everybody else, but being able to repeat them during the tournament was a different story. It didn't happen. So I think that there's fish everywhere, but there's certain areas that just you're going to constantly catch fish in them versus, a spot that's off the wall. You may pull in a certain time, hammer some big fish, but you're not going to repeat that there the next day.
Did it feel different? I mean, you've obviously won an NPFL event in Florida. You've top 10 opens in Florida. So it's not like you don't understand Florida or anything. Did it feel different for you in the morning? We know how hard you worked and how singularly your focus was to make the Elite Series once you decided that is what you wanted to do. What was that feeling like on the first morning idling out with Mercer calling your name, with running to the first spot on Okeechobee, with actually making a cast on the Elite Series?
Yeah, that was pretty cool, man. That was pretty rewarding. It was a really good feeling. And then, to top it off, like some icing on the cake, Larry Nixon was the boat in front of me. So
wow.
Like he got called in front of me. So, I got to follow out Larry Nixon, the general, my first event. So, man, there's just it's a rewarding feeling. However, I got a lot of work to do, man, because I want to stay on the elites. I don't want to get bumped off. So I gotta pick it up.
You do. Is it true? I mean, do they in the first 2? Did they catch it better than you thought they would? As far as just holy cow, like you have to dot your I's and cross your T's to stay up with this group and be 100% in, because I know you have, and we'll get into this a little bit, you have a lot of irons in the fire. But there's also some Elite Series guys who have irons in the fire. But in my opinion, you've also been one of the best that I've ever been around at compartmentalizing. 99% of the time. I've only seen that one tournament where you weren't able to compartmentalize. And I think you had a massive project outside going on and you sucked in that tournament. Everything else, regardless of what's going on in the ethos around you, you've been able, I mean, it's amazing what you've been able to do as far as to be focused on it. Did you feel that focus too? Or, I mean, can you tell that that there is no outside, I mean, when it comes to the elite
No, I've
cruise
got
guy?
these first two events. I've had a lot of outside distractions, a lot of outside distractions. But you know, you get punched in the mouth a couple times, and you know, if you're a fighter, you kind of wake up, and
Yeah.
that's how I feel after these first two events. Absolutely, the elites catch them. The answer is as a whole. Like there is not drops in the field. It's like, you know, there is no room for error. I I didn't catch him, so it wouldn't have mattered. I joked around like you could have put me against a bunch of high schoolers and I would have come in last
Yeah.
place at Okeechobee. I just didn't catch him at all. So, but you know, Seminole, I caught him. You know,
That's, I said, it had to feel
sim,
good to make a comeback. It's even if it was a baby comeback, but to have a
yeah.
really good day on the water at Seminole.
Yeah, I mean it did. I didn't, you know, honestly, I never really got on them real well at Seminole. So Seminole, I showed up, I started live scoping first thing day one of practice, I caught like two 6-pounders back to back, and I called Brad. I was like, "Oh, dude, I figured it out already. Like this is gonna be my thing." And so I end up spinning, and I end up having a giant as well, like a mega giant. And I'm like, well, I got it kind of figured out. And after about 2 days of practice and kind of chasing areas, I didn't pre-scout anything either. So
Mm-hmm.
these are both my first time on these waters, both times. I realized right away that the fish were kind of going down to the bottom, and I was losing touch with just being able to go out and live scope, you know, with a jerk bait that is, and just come across big fish. So day three of practice, Bradley and I both decided to kind of go up in the river, and we came across some fish, some pretty good fish, which is by takeoff, by the way. So I pull in a pocket and just with a chatterbait catch two 5.5 females, big old bellies, eggs, and I'm like, okay, they're going to go in these pockets and spawn. And by the end of the day, you know, we're coming across beds, tons of fish on beds and stuff. So you can see this starting to happen. So day one of the tournament, I decided to go in that, you know, because it's like 5 minutes from takeoff, slide in about an hour and 45 minutes of being in the area where I caught those big fish. I catch a 713 on a frog, and I'm like, okay, I know I can go down and catch a bunch of 2 and 3 pounders, but man, if I get 4 more bites like this, you know, this is how you make a run at it. And so that's what I did. I swung. I mean, I kept on throwing bigger baits, frogs, and just the chatterbait thing, and doing the things that I'd seen the consistent 5 pound plus bite on. And after about 4.5 hours in, man, I've only got one fish in the box, but it's a 712 or 713, whatever it was. And so, you know, I had to kind of scramble, and I scrambled down lake, you know, went into the timber and caught a limit real quick. And, but they were dinks. I didn't give myself very much time. So they were really, really tiny. I thought I had 11 pounds, but when I went into the weigh in, it was high 14s,
Mm-hmm.
which had me right at that cut line. So day two, it was kind of you're in a situation where you know you got to kind of usually most tournaments, you know, at the cut line, if it's 14 pounds, you basically add 14 pounds and then what, like subtract a pound, right? It's kind of how,
Yep.
but that's not how it really works on the elites, man. It's pretty much
They get
you
better.
yeah, they do. You have to add a pound. So I'm like, okay, I need 15 pounds. I need 3 pounder average. So I went back to practice in day two. I went, now I rotated a bunch of stuff that I'd already kind of caught fish around, but I went, man, I frogged in the morning with no bites. I chatterbaited for another hour with no bites. I went flipping. I did not go into the areas where they were bedding that I knew they were bedding because Bradley was in there, and I just didn't, you know, I was trying to be kind of respectful of that area. So I really didn't go looking for the sight fish. Um, but then, man, I had a longer day, thankfully, on day two. So I went down to the dam, did some shaky head stuff, caught a couple fish doing that, and then I was like, okay, well, I need to pull out the jerk bait and go live scoping. So I went live scoping for about an hour and a half, caught my limit, which gave me another 3 pounder. So now I got like 2 3 pounders and the rest are twos. So then I decided to go sight fishing, and I mean I was, you know, looking for new areas. So for about an hour I went sight fishing and finally got myself up in the pads and decided swimming a worm. And in the last hour I caught like, you know, I cold like 4 or 5 times in the last hour. And if I felt like if I had had like 30 more minutes to an hour, I think I could have squeezed in that 50 cut. But I ended up stumbling into it, figuring out what I needed to do better. But by the time I did, both Okeechobee and on Seminole, it was literally the last hour, the last day of the tournament. It was just too late. And so the difference between when you're fishing well and when you're, kind of fishing is when you're fishing well, you listen to your gut early on, and that stuff triggers early in the tournament, typically, right? Or at least midday, you kind of figure it out, not towards the very end. And so I think just came back home and spent a little bit of time on the water, getting tuned back in and just getting my mind right and getting being able to learn, get my mind where I can compartmentalize, like you're saying. And I feel pretty strong right now. So hopefully we can get tuned into the fish a little bit faster in the next event.
Time on the water. I mean, you can't, it's weird.
Yeah.
And it's hard to look at it as fishing. I do the same thing in the opens. I think a lot of guys do, but you can't expect a Major League Baseball player without spring training to just come in and hit a fastball, or a PJ Tour guy to come in and shoot 65, or a hockey guy to come in off season without any training. But because fishing, it doesn't look, there's no distinction on that. I'm guilty of it too, especially depending on how busy you are. You come in and you don't realize that those decision makings aren't as sharp as they are mid-season, and you don't even realize that you're making them. I think that's kind of what you were saying there, is you need time on the water. And had you been in peak mid-season form, maybe you figure out that stuff midday, day one, instead of last hour, day two.
Yeah, I can look back and I can hear it in my head. Like I literally ignored my gut the entire time, both tournaments, until the very end, and then I was like, okay, just go do it. And I was trying to like outsmart my gut, and that's just a situation you just never want to be in as a fisherman. And I've fished for years by listening to my gut. So maybe a little bit of the nerves, a little bit of the pressure of the desire to stay on the elites and stuff like that so much, and to perform at a high level, expectations to perform, had me trying to use my brain more than
you felt nerves. Like you legit felt nerve. I didn't know you were capable of that, John.
Not shaky nerves, but definitely the kind where you're trying to negotiate with yourself. Are you going to do what you think's right or what your gut's telling you? And I decided to do what I thought was right instead of what my gut was telling me to. And so that's the lesson. The lesson relearned. I don't know how many times as a fisherman you relearn that to follow your gut. Yeah, yeah.
All right, we are talking with. This is the first time I've said it on the show, with Elite Series Pro John Soukup. We got a whole bunch of stuff to get into today. We have some viewer questions. We have some hellacious deals over at the Bass Tank, and we also have some upcoming regional tournaments in the Ozark area that we're going to talk with. But first, we're going to take our first break of the morning with John Soukup, Elite Series Pro from the Bass Tank. We will be back on a Monday, post Redcrest Monday, March 13th, right after this BTL.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
Everything you need, one legendary brand. Top 1 Strike King.
Hey guys, Gerald Swindle representing the AFCO Hydronaut. This is the jacket I love wearing when times is tough, and I'm talking about the weather, not the fishing. The jacket, what I like, I got a double cup right here. I can seal up the bottom of my jacket, because when you're fishing, you're holding your arms up. You're bad about getting water, it runs downhill. Everything bends good. I'm long arm. Look, it fits very comfortable. My arms is flexible. I've got the speed hood on, pouring down rain. I can get everything zipped up. One thing they did is they made plenty of pocket space. If you ain't got enough pockets in the Hydronaut rain suit, you just got too much stuff. When the water membrane. That's 30K, baby. 30 times the reason you ain't gonna get wet. Super warm. If it's cold in the wintertime, you put on your Hydronaut, you're gonna be a much more comfortable person. If you don't want to just look sexy at Dairy Queen, wear your Hydronaut. We got it from small to 5X. Most rain gear does not come in that many sizes. You got waist adjusting straps. We can make it fit you. No matter what the environment is, we want you to be comfortable. We want you to be dry. You gotta check it out. It ain't gonna let you down.
Elite Series Pro Daryl Gleason here. My Pro Guide batteries keep me going on those long tournament days and long practice days. Always plenty of juice, never fail. The best part about Pro Guide batteries, it's the people behind the company. They have over 40 years experience in the battery business, keeping all of us fishermen out on the water longer, catching more fish. Check them out at ProGuideBatteries.com.
What's up, Bass Talk Live fans? Brandon Polnick here. And ever since I won a couple Bassmaster Elite Series events on X-Zone Lures, I've been getting a bunch of questions of what makes them so special and different. And really, the truth is, it's in the details. The little details, things like no cheap fillers in their plastic. That gives you more lifelike action, more realistic and vibrant colors. But don't just take my word for it. Go to www.xzonelures.com and check them out for yourself.
Shoreline Boat and RV, dock rash, storm damage, collision repair, that deep scratch or gouge from trying to access that secret creek. Shoreline Boat and RV can get your prized possession back in mint condition and looking good on the water, fast. All repairs are done in-house, so they're able to get your boat or RV back to brand new, quickly. All Shoreline's work comes with a rock-solid warranty. Find out more at ShorelineBoatandRV.com. Kansas City, Austin, and Tulsa. All right, welcome back, BTL, on a Monday, talking with John Soukup from the Bass Tank. Now, John, you're also a alumnus of the Oklahoma Bass Nation.
Yeah,
and you saw
a proud one.
I know, I am too. I'm glad I did the Nation. I might even jump into some Nation stuff this year to try to get to the level that you're currently at. You tend to accelerate past people when you put your mind to something. Qualifying for the Elite Series was one of that. But I'm sure, did you see where Brock, who's the general manager of the Shoreline Boat and RV in Tulsa there, I mentioned this on the show last week, but Brock and Jacob won the frickin' Nichols last week.
Yeah, I did see that, which is cool. Brock ain't no little boy, but he's one of my fishing kids. You know, when I
wait, what?
I was one of the fishing state youth director for a couple of years. And I started a club up in Stillwater before it went into high schools. And he was one of my kids. Austin was one of my kids. Like Jacob that works for us here was one of my kids. Trevor Yates, Wyatt Smith, a lot of those guys. And so Brock Enmeyer was one of my fishing kids. He was never little, but
yeah,
he was a kid at one point.
He's at the gym all the time now. He's almost getting me to work out where, I mean, he's cashed some serious checks this year already. I had this discussion, and then I mentioned I wanted to do a show about it, and it kind of blew up as to what the most competitive team trail. We're not talking about a single one-off tournament, but the most competitive team trail in the country is. And I wanted to kind of put together a list of 5 or 6 of the most competitive team trails, but the Nichols team trail would have to be in the top 5 across the country as most. Would you not agree?
Yeah, it has to be just based surely off of the field size alone. It's got to be the largest field size. And then you got the Texas team trail, and then you got the Alabama Bass Trail.
Yeah, the ABT, the Triple T, the Nichols. I know that there's a number of really, really good team trails out there, and I need to get I want to get a representative. I know I've had a couple DMs from guys. Hey, I'll represent so and so trail at this trail, but I think if we could get a representative from on and then just have a Royal Rumble as to whose trail is the most competitive. Because I was on, they're like, oh well, we've had Jordan Lee and Greg Vinson and Jamie Horton and all that, and I'm like, oh yeah, well Nichols has Jason Christie and Terry Butcher and blah, and I've got James Elam and John Soukup, and I'm going down the list, Zach Burge, and down the list, and he's like, oh, I totally forgot about so and so and so and so, and it's like, holy cow, almost all these guys who are now household names at the top level of the sport started by really cutting their teeth and having success at these high, $20,000 win a boat, 4 or 5 tournaments a year on 2 or 3 fisheries across the state. I think that's how I kind of I think that's such a cool element to tournament fishing that we don't really talk a lot about on this show, are the high end team tournaments that, I mean, dude, that's like some of my best memories. I've got it on the wall here in the studio, the boat number for when we've done well in the past.
Well, I was gonna do well at one point in time. I didn't get to fish those a lot, but Billy Lemon and I were gonna fish those together at one point. We were fishing, and I think we fished like 2, and we were doing okay. And then, like always, work got in the way. Like when close to a summer tournament, I had to lay some tile or something, and then Billy I need to fill in, so I set Corey Smith up to fish with Billy Lemon. And they roll out there and catch a 13-pounder and win the Nichols that weekend that I didn't go.
Wait, you were supposed to fish with Billy the day he caught the 12-12.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I got relegated to the bench. I never got asked to get back.
That's fair.
Him and Corey, they fell in love. They caught a 12-12. That was so. There's some cool memories and stuff of those events too. A lot of good fishermen.
That's fair. While we're talking about other tournament trails, you have been the face of the National Professional Fishing League for the last couple of years, just strictly on your performance. You've had a lot of camera time on that. 2 wins, competed for the Angler of the Year both years. Little redesign this year. I don't know if where you stand, if you're in a position to talk about that, but I mean, dude, you are a great product of the MPFL now on the Elite Series, along with Bryant Smith from California.
Bryant Smith and David Gaston.
And David Gaston there in Alabama. They're about to kick off their 3rd season on Pickwick. A little bit different format, a little bit bigger prize. Did it cross your mind to fish that? What are your thoughts on what's going on with the MPFL this year? And dude, they keep defying the odds just when you hear, what do you mean the tournament's blown out or there's not a chance? And then they come back and reboot and you're like, okay, this thing is rock solid and is going to roll into a 3rd season.
Yeah, no, I would. It was hard. It's hard for me not to be there right now. I'm, the Bass Nation, the NPFL, these are great organizations that have helped me become the angler that I am. And I enjoy and I love being a part of the NPFL. Unfortunately, due to some of their, some of the challenges that they've had over the first 2 years, one of the challenges that they had was getting their schedule out there. People were saying, well, they don't have the schedule out. They don't have the schedule out. And so they needed to know what kind of field size they were going to have for investment's sake. And so with that being said, they decided to make their schedule way in advance. So their schedule came out prior to Bass's Elite Series coming out. So when that did come out, there was 2 major conflicts for me. One was a direct conflict, and the other was more of a travel conflict that would have, I would have had to take like 2 boats to make it happen, that kind of thing, which isn't an impossibility, but it just probably wasn't the right decision for me to do year 1. So very interested in fishing again with them next year. Hopefully I can catch them on the elites a little bit better and get more confidence in there so I can focus. And then 2, hopefully they can work out a deconflicting schedule that will allow us to do that.
If I saw it right, I think that they're doing something unique at the weigh-ins where they're going to be like live with Luke and Fat Cat and then talk to the anglers as they basically come off stage. So it's kind of like an interactive weigh-in / interview deal.
Yeah, I saw something on that too. I don't know much about that. That's kind of something that's popped up in the last week or something. An idea, which I think has always been good. Year 1, Luke and Fat Cat were there, with the fishermen on location a lot. And there's some morale and stuff that there's just a good feeling when that's going on. I've always been for that. And I think, because of financial reasons, I mean, that's a lot of travel and, having a whether you're in studio or being able to do, on the road studio, I think to save costs, that's why they were in Wisconsin on year 2. So I don't know how they're going to do it here this year.
Hey, you called me before the year started and you were like, Does this, you're asking about numbers and where just have done stuff for the past, and it was all revolved around Elite Series analytics. Are you doing that this year? Are you going real deep into the analytics?
Yeah, I didn't. I wasn't able to do it before the first event. So my first event, I'm literally installing CDEC the day before the tournament. Like I never had an opportunity to really mentally focus on the first event. So part of that reset coming back was like getting back to the, like, how do I reset? Well, one of the things that I do, and you've been around me for a long time to know this, is I study the analytics of fishermen's results, of tournaments that we're going to, all the above. There's mainly two things that I study heavily, and that is what kind of weight that it's going to take to win the tournament, or 10th place, or to cash a check. So I really average a lot of those out. But also, I just enjoy statistics. I like to know in the standings, like, where you're at. What is it going to take to continue to requalify? How do these laws and rules work with the elites? And to be honest with you, it was kind of confusing, and a lot of people don't know about how the elites actually work. And I've been just finding this out just recently, like within the last 2 weeks. If you want, I can kind of go in depth a little bit about what I'm learning on that. But
Absolutely.
When you bomb an event, 94th was my first finish. The first thing that's going through my mind is, oh my gosh, you're like, well, you get a free year. Well, not really. I mean, you're not going to get kicked out on year two, but if you have a bad average, then it's going to hurt you. So.
Yeah, explain how that works, as far as not only just to qualify for the Classic, but to make sure in 2 years you're not right back where you started 2 years prior.
Yeah, I'm back hanging out in the opens, like maybe driving past each other. As Matt goes to the elites, I'm going back to the opens. So this is how it works. You asked about the Classic. That one's pretty easy. I think that's like top 40, right?
Yeah, depending on double qualifiers, it sometimes goes down to 42, 43.
Yeah. So you're guaranteed
your 1 year average.
40, yeah, 1 year average. End of the season, if you finish in the top 40, you go to the Classic. Now, if double qualifier means if you've also fished in the opens, or anybody's fished in the opens and wins an open, they use that as their Classic berth, and it goes back down the list. So it keeps going down the elites at the end of the year AOY finish. So like you said, it can go down to 41, 42, 43. I mean, I guess besides this first event, it can go all the way to 48. I mean, the next 8 series were won by elites. There's usually a couple of them, 2 or 3, that are won by an elite guy. But that wasn't really the thing that was interesting the most. What I was really trying to get in is how does the elite field exist? How do they keep it going? What's the overflow? And that's been a process, it looks like, over the last few years of them developing. And I don't know, when was kind of the split? Was that 18
That'd have been,
or something?
2019.
19. So since then, they only had like 88 anglers at that point. And they've had some votes and they've had some decisions, and I'm not been a part of any of that. So this is just facts I'm throwing at you. Bass has decided that they're going to keep around 100 boats on the Elite Series. So they have allowed it to kind of build up. We have 104 now. What they do is 100 is their number, but that does not include any exemptions. So we had 2 medical exemptions, and they had 2 legacy exemptions.
So Larry Nixon was one of them.
Was one of them, and I think David Fritz is the other. Now, to get a legacy exemption, you get 1 point of a legacy exemption if you win an AOI, or 1 point if you've won a Classic. So there's guys that have multiple years of legacy exemptions, like a Rick Clunn,
So
now,
that way you can, if you're outside of that, you can use it. So if you have 4 Classic titles, just random number there, you have 4 legacy exemptions. If you have 2 or 3 Angler of the Years, I see what you're saying. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I did not know that element of it.
So they can use that legacy exemption multiple times until they've ran out of that. Now, that hasn't been exercised yet or anything like that. But, like a Mike Iaconelli, he's got a Classic win, right? He qualified on his own merits without using that legacy exemption.
Right.
So, a lot of people may wonder, well, why did he do that? And, I think he's the kind of guy that's like, I want to prove it to myself. I get that too. But also, mathematically, hey, man, if he can
he's got that in
qualify
his
and
back
not
pocket.
use it, 100%.
Because he would have had to use it if he hadn't qualified through the Open, and then he wouldn't have had
Yeah.
one in his back pocket. So this is guaranteeing. That's brilliant. I never
It's-
even thought of that, John.
It's a non-refundable coin, man. Once you turn it
Yeah.
in, it's not like they can give it back to you. So here's a little bit of what they're doing now, and I don't know when they change the rules or when they're allowed. I don't know any of that.
Mhm.
So, I know people get all in the weeds about the frustration on that side of things. I'm just reporting on the facts that I'm studying because of how it
Right.
affects me right now. This year, all the rookies get 2 years. They get 2 years. But at the end of next year, so at the end of 2024, I'll just report for this year. Anybody that's not in the top 70 at the end of the year or above, everybody that's in 70th place or above, they automatically qualify for the next year. So the question is 71st through 104th, right? What they do at that point, because you've got 10 new guys coming in, you'll have 9.
No, you'll have 10.
Yep. 9 from the Opens and 1 from the Bass Nation.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yep.
Now, so there's 10 coming in. So there's going to be 10 cut at the end of this year. What they do is they take 71st through 104th and they average out their career average finishes in AOI. But there's another part of it. For every 5 years they fished, they get a drop a score.
So if you fish for 15 years, you get to drop your 3 worst scores.
Correct.
And
Now,
you're not included in that if you're a rookie because you automatically get a second year. But your average, if you're in that, really screws you going into that second year.
Correct. So you could finish, you could finish in 90th place. There's 104 guys. There's a couple of legends below you, and there's a group of rookies below you. You're still going to get cut. They're going to work up the line and cut.
Yeah, so you could finish 65th or 70th and be like, well, yeah, look at those averages. There's so many guys below me, but because of the new rookies coming in, because of the Legends exemption, and because of all of the averages, you really have to finish higher than you think you do to stay in that top 70 after 2 years.
Right. You could finish in 71st place, be the highest of that 71 out of 100 through 104, but have the worst, 2-year average. Or if you fish for 5 years, whatever it is, you could have the worst average and you're the one getting cut.
So here was, and I don't know if they're still doing this. This was, I think, the sticking point when they had the smaller Elite Series fields in, I think, like 19 and 20, is you had a guy, you could not finish below like 78 or 81st or whatever it was. Well, now you can finish 80 to 100. So their averages were higher because they weren't averaging, they were taking their finish, right? So if, let's say there were 75 guys and you finished dead last, that's a 75th place finish. But then the following year, if there were 80 guys, the guy who finished 76th was basically getting punished because they weren't averaging the percentage of the field they were beating. They were just taking their finish. Are they still doing that? Or is that still gray?
No, yeah, it's just I guess we'll use the word gray area, but it's literally your finish right now. There's a couple things in studying this that seems like statistically would be more quote unquote fair to the fishermen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not knocking, like I said, I'm not knocking Bass's decisions.
Yeah,
I'm
you
not
just
doing
want
any
to
of that.
figure out what the heck you need to do to stick.
Yeah. But the two things that I saw that seems like mathematically be a little bit more fair would be if they took your average finish compared to your field size. So let's say you finished 90 out of 100, that's 90 percentile, right? Mm-hmm. Well, if you finished 70th out of 88, you know what I mean? Or the year that, or, out of 80, 72 out of 80, for example, that's 90 percentile. So those would seem equivalent, right? But the way they're doing it, 72 is a higher score than a 90. So there's some guys that are getting some bumps because of those lower field sizes. Like I said, those are just percentages. But also the other thing that I was thinking of as I was kind of going down through here is look at Bradley Hallman, for example.
Yeah, that's what was my next question.
I called Bradley and I was like, hey, man, these rules say career average. He's like, what? It's like, he's had basically 2 different Elite Series careers. And, Bradley will sit here and tell you those stories about when, bass fishing ruined his soul, kind of that
Yeah, he
thing.
was
where
he wasn't weighing fishing.
he was dropping fish. And who would have thought that 10 years later, or more than 10 years, he was going to be potentially paying for that by, those points. Now, he will get a drop score pretty quickly. And that will definitely be the year that he has a drop score. But you are a different fisherman 15 years from you were 15 years ago. So what it would seem like to me they could do potentially is like year 1 through 5, that average is weighted heavier than your year 6 through 10, and then thus again even more heavier than your year 11 through 15 and 16 through 20. Like a weighted scale. And you can still have drop scores and everything in that if you did it that way. But I say all that in my ignorance. I don't know all the backdrop of why they've decided what they've decided. I was just looking through. I'm a statistical nerd. I love the math. I was the kid that, like, when I had a Nintendo, before they save stats, I'd pause the game at the end and I'd write down all my stats, like Reggie Miller, Michael Jordan, yeah, and I'd have all these stat pages.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because they didn't, remember Nintendo didn't keep the stats back then. So like fresh new game, and like I was like through the season. So that's just a little bit who I am. That's a little bit how I engage. I do the same thing with my tackle. I over tweak my tackle, and a lot of it just has to do with getting your mind and mentally preparation. It doesn't have anything to do with my tackle not being already ready. It's just the getting in the moment, if you will. Yeah.
I'd venture to say over 50% of the guys fishing the Elite Series have no idea how they requalify, what they do, what the points, what anything means. Like, they're just out there fishing.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's a lot of studying. So, I reached out to Bass, and it looks like it seems like it sounded like in about a month or so, they give us kind of an update and let us know where we're at. But I just started building my own spreadsheet, and I mean, it's going to take me a couple days, but go back through everybody's season, career finishes, and just build my own spreadsheet so I kind of know where I'm at.
This is the maddening thing about fishing. You've got guys who obviously have made it to the top level. You're talking about spreadsheets and career, and then you have Brandon Polinick, who swears that he has never looked at an Angler of the Year standing sheet over the last 15 years, except when the season's over.
Well,
and it both works. It's both works.
He's also averaged like a 4th or 5th place finish in AOI for the past 5 or 6 years. So like, when you're finishing that high, it doesn't matter.
All right, off the water. You got a lot of stuff going on at the Bass Tank. It is March Madness.
Yeah.
You come up with all the names for these deals. You guys have some hilariously named deals.
I do. That's part of the fun I like about marketing. Yeah.
What's going on what's just a synopsis? What are we looking at the Bass Tank here? What can people pay attention to?
The biggest deals, we got a 93 SV with a GT54 transducer. It gets ultra high definition downside traditional sonar for like $699.
So that's this right here.
Right. And then so right next to it is the deal of the century on live scope bundle. So it was like, what's the cheapest way to get in a live scope? This is the cheapest way out there on the market. It's $1,800, 9-inch unit, and
that's everything you need to. That is everything you need to.
Yep.
Have live scope on your boat. Is this the exact same system that I ran for the last 3 years?
This was your startup system. Yep.
Well, it was also my system in 19, 20, 21, and 22. This is the first year of the upgrade.
And yours was like, back then, it was like a $3,000 deal.
I literally walked in. I will never forget this. I walked in and I gave you like $2,800 in $100 bills. I mean, I paid full out for it, and now it's $17,998.
Well, for limited time. I mean, they're running out. They're running out fast. Those special deals, they're running out fast.
So less than $2,000, you're in the live scope.
Yep, you're in the game, and you're fishing like Brian Thrift.
And that's Wheeler. The black box.
The next day.
The 9-inch screen, which, like I said, I've used a 9-inch screen for the last 4 years. Now, upgrading to the 10-inch screen was amazing, and I wish I had upgraded to the 12-inch screen. And then I was like, ooh, I see guys with 16-inch screens, and then that what is it? NP, that dude. Did you see the guy that idled past at the Open who had the 26-inch or 24-inch screens?
Yeah, they got those big screens.
Did you see that?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
but
you
I've
weren't
seen
there. They were. He was
Yeah.
in the gallery. He was in the picture. He was sitting on the side. I keep forgetting you didn't fish the Open. The dude had like a 26-inch screen, 2 of them. It was ridiculous. How does that work? Is that like an independent screen that then like they have some system that?
There is an independent screen. There is an independent screen out there that works like through an HDMI outlet with each other. And then there's also literally Garmin has some 8600 series that go up to 22, 24. I don't know about 26, but 22 and 24, 20, 22 and 24 inch screens. So I got my 8616. So I got a 16 on my boat. But
Okay.
you have to create your own brackets and things like that to be able to use it.
That seems all right. So that is the March Madness, I guess, deal of the month.
Yeah, it will probably be gone pretty soon. So yeah.
All right, and then what else do we have? What else do you have down there too? A lot of You guys do all 3: Garmin, Humminbird, and Lowrance.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, we're definitely known. We're definitely known for our Garmin stock and things like that. But your power harnesses. People are installing. You buy a brand new kit like that. We got single harness and then we got a double harness. Single harness is like $199. It comes with all the connections and breakers and things that you need. The dual harness does 2 different sets of units, so you can run one to your console and then one up front. So if you're just like into rewiring.
All right, this is the question right here. All right, you guys have trolling motors, and you run a Garmin trolling motor with the electronics too.
Yes.
Which is brushless. I run Lowrance, Garmin, and Minn up front. And then you see all the guys that are running the 3 different units up front, which thankfully, lithium batteries help that out big time with the ability to run all that with the power, and then the power harness. Code BTL at ProGuideBatteries.com if you guys are interested for 10% off. Bass Tank is also a distributor.
Yeah, and there's
Pro Guide batteries.
There's actually a big Pro Guide sale going on right now as we speak.
Oh, really?
So they can probably tap into both of those. Yeah.
Let me see. Is it on?
Probably might have been a red crest. This day might be the last day today.
Oh, okay. All right. Trolling motor. What do you know anything? I mean, you're in this game. Do you know anything about the power pole trolling motor that came out? And then also, that thing's been in production since Larry Nixon was a rookie.
So I know a few items that probably everybody knows. I know it's a little bit more expensive. It's gonna be close to a $5,000 trolling motor.
Oh wow!
I know it's got a reverse brushless. I know it's brushless. I know it's got a reverse option on there, so that's something that's unique. And those are probably the main things that I know about. I haven't touched it, seen it, felt it. We got a few of them on order. We got in on a little early order deal, so we'll have some in our hands soon.
Okay, pairing, whether you're running Ghost with active target, whether you're running I don't know the name of the Garmin trolling motor, the Force.
Yep.
With Panoptix Live Scope, or I guess it would be the Minn Humminbird would be their pair, correct?
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing this a lot more in the industry of guys who are pairing their trolling motor to their electronics. What are, in your opinion, you've probably been in the boat with all of them with what you do, I would imagine. What are the advantages of, say, having the Garmin trolling motor and Garmin electronics, or the Lowrance trolling motor and Lowrance electronics? Are you getting a massive advantage with these things working together, or is it just like, hey, I'm all Garmin, I'm all Lowrance, I'm all Minn Humminbird?
Oh, I mean, dude, if you've ever knocked off a transducer that was mounted on the body of your trolling motor, which we all have, or knocked it sideways or knocked it off, the advantage is, like, I have not destroyed a transducer once since I've got a built-in transducer from the Force. So those are your plug-and-play simple answers for all of the above, for all the brands.
But I mean, is my Live Scope going to work better with a Garmin trolling motor, or is my active target going to work better with
No,
a ghost trolling motor?
not yet. There's nothing that's now. There's some things with the Lowrance when it comes to the 360 thing that you'd have to work with its trolling motor. There is some features that they have to coincide together. But when you're just talking about regular forward shooting sonar, you're not going to gain anything as of yet because the transducer's mounted separately. It's mounted on the shaft. You're not gaining anything. So I think there's probably some arguments, not some arguments. I mean, there's definitely some trolling motors that work better with forward shooting sonar than other trolling motors. 100% there is. Has nothing to do with the internals. Has everything to do with like Ultrex jumps. That's extremely annoying if you're trying to live scope. The Ghost doesn't have a head that turns, so you have to look at your calibration so you're more inaccurate. In the Force, the head moves, so you're able to look where you're looking, and it doesn't jump, so it's real smooth. It's real smooth, and both of the Ghost and the Force are brushless, so they're a lot more quiet as well. So
what exactly does brushless mean, John?
Well, in the head, it's not running off of brushes. So like the best way to describe it is when you've put stuff on the Ultrex, you feel the grinding in the head and the motor. Those are the brushes working. So you're gonna get like, I mean, I don't know, I don't want to exaggerate anything, but you're gonna get like 2 or 3 times the lifespan on your battery with those brushless trolling. Like the power needed, the power you get from it, the quietness of it. There's just a lot of benefits to that system, and obviously they're all going to it. PowerPole working on theirs as well. I've seen some cool videos on the PowerPole Move of them running that thing through just gobs of weeds and stuff, and just plowing right through it. That's
so what?
Not overheating, so it helps you not overheat the brushless. It won't overheat as easy. Things of that nature.
So how is it that motor guides looks like you could have a small city in the head, and PowerPole literally looks like a pole in the head?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I haven't broken it open to look at myself. I think that literally that might have been the look that they were trying to go for.
Okay. I don't understand that stuff on the trolling motor. Like I find something that I like or that I've used to. I wouldn't even say like used to, which is I really like the Ultrex. And it's becoming, especially with the forward-facing technology, your trolling motor, your pedal, your tension, how the head moves is becoming incredibly customized to where you can't be as effective when you just jump in someone else's boat as you are with yours once you get that. And I think that's also the start of the year is the guys who have everyone is just a little different. Would you agree with that? It's hard to jump in someone else's boat and be as effective as you are in yours because of how customized the trolling motor, the tension, the differences are.
100%.
All right, we're going to take our final break of the show. When we come back, really cool tournament coming up. SAP and Bass, a nonprofit tournament on Table Rock. I think you guys are. I think the Bass Tank is Pro Guide involved in that too a little bit.
Yeah.
I want to get your take on that. And then I also want to talk about, you have a lot of, and we've never talked about this on the show. It's always just, we have accessories and things. I want to talk about how like the accessories come to life. Cause I use the Guardian, the new Live Scope Guardian. And then I realize I've got like 6 of the Bass Tank accessories on it. And I want to know how that comes to be because I've talked to you a little bit about it and it seems like a mix between like concept development and a massive headache. To get everything in. So John Soukup, BTL on a Monday. We will be back right after this.
Great thing about the new Sensation soft plastics from Big Bite Baits, heavily scented, super soft, buoyant, comes in 7 great new shapes. I've got a couple of them of my signature series, the cliffhanger worm and the ramtail craw. Great for a flipping jig, football jig, swim jig, all that. Several other great shapes. Really excited about it. We've worked over the last year. Catches fish all over the country, and I think it's going to catch fish for people everywhere you try it.
The Spro Little John crankbait has been around for almost 15 years, and it is one of my go-to crankbaits whenever I need a fish in the boat, so you can never have enough new colors. That's why Spro's coming out with a handful of new colors, including Pearl Shad, which has this bleached out white look, but it's got this pearlescent, really pretty. We've got Copper Shad, which looks amazing in the water. It's got that purple flake on the back, really pops in the water. And then if you want some real pop, we've got Sparkle Shad, nothing but sparkles all over this thing. And then last but not least, we've got the matte Sexy Shad, just a really different looking color for a crankbait. So you want to give them a little different look, that matte Sexy Shad is definitely the one to go with. All these colors are available in the original Little John and the MD.
Have you considered purchasing new electronics for your rig? The type of mounts you choose to protect your investment should be part of the decision-making process. No matter if you prefer 1, 2, or 3 graphs up front, Beatdown Outdoors has a solution for you. Adjustable, versatile, rigid, and made in the USA. What's your ultimate electronic setup? Check out the full selection of Beatdown Outdoors products by visiting beatdownoutdoors.com.
I'm the kind of guy that never leaves the house without a pocket knife, and Gamakatsu's come out with the EDC series of knives. EDC stands for Everyday Carry, so whether you're on the water or off, you can always have it with you. The best thing about it to me is that assisted open feature. With this D2 blade, you've got it right here at your fingertips, so if you can't find your scissors, you need to cut a knot, you need to cut your braid, you've always got it. Make sure you check it out. Never leave home without your Gamakatsu EDC knife.
Born in Japan, using technology, innovation, and precision, Sunline produces the widest selection of fishing lines at the most technologically advanced line factory in the world. Manufactured at the strictest tolerances to produce victories at the highest levels of tournament bass fishing. From household names like Christie, Swindle, and Cruz, to young guns like Cook, Logan, New, and Welcher, they all trust Sunline to take them to the top of the leaderboard. Choose the line that will give you the strength to guarantee your confidence. Sunline.
Having confidence in your tackle while on the water is one of the main things to success, in my opinion. In the last couple of years with Denali, I've had just that. From anything from spinning rods, casting rods, tungsten products, even now to casting and spinning reels, I have the confidence to go out there and get the job done and know that all my equipment is going to handle it and do it just the way I want it. The thing about Denali is you've got great quality products at a great price point, so make sure you check them out.
All right, welcome back. Monday, BTL. It's cold. I'm trying to decide if after the show I take care of some business, then I go out crappie fishing, John.
I think we got some wind and rain Wednesday and Thursday, so like heavy winds, like 30 and 40 mile winds. So you might do that today or tomorrow.
Because they should technically be rolling. I mean, they should be biting with the front system coming in, right? Like those crappie, I feel like are very sensitive to what is going on, like pressure-wise and weather-wise.
I think we can make them bite whenever. Yeah, no.
Well, I'm not you, so
they should be smashing.
You could say if I'm wrong, you could just be like, no, it has nothing to do with that.
No, it should be good. It should be good. Nice calm weather. You get out there, you should be able to find them suspended. Cool weather too. Yeah, it should be good.
I'm doing it. I'm going to drive to the Secret Lake and I'm going to catch some giant crappie after the show. I probably won't get out there till like 1, but I think today is daylight savings time. So
yeah. Plus that 1 o'clock time period is the best time period to be out there.
Yeah. All right. I want to ask you, like I said, I heard you were part of this. You mentioned it. I saw the flyer for the Sap and Bass event that is coming up in May on Table Rock Lake, right?
Yeah, it's May 13th. And Table Rock, which is kind of a unique team tournament deal. There's a guaranteed $15,000 for second place, but the winner gets a C-Arc and a 250 show Yamaha. So, it's nothing to scratch off, man. It's a really good opportunity.
Anytime you can win a boat,
yeah,
bring some people out. So what, you guys are Bass Tank is sponsoring that event too?
Yeah, we're affiliate sponsor with them as well, Pro Guide as well. So there is a pre-registration like the 17th. Well, you can kind of go on now and register. You just get a link, but official registration doesn't start until the 17th. So, they're anticipating a 200 boat field. So
which is 1 in 4
payday.
boat payout. Bass Master, 1 in 4 boats. Imagine that. Holy cow, 25% payback to the field. That should just be standard across the board, should it not, John? But yeah, you could check that out. Sap and Bass. SAPP, like tree sap with a. Are there 2 P's in tree sap?
I don't know. I'm not a very good
speller.
speller.
SAPP and Bass, like jumping bass. Sap and Bass, because I know when I was talking to you about it, I was like, it's what? And you're like, sap. But check that out. If you're in the area, the Ozark area, that time of the year too can be really western on Table Rock. You're still going to have some late spawners. You're going to, if the water comes up, you're going to have fish in bushes. You're going to have post spawners on dock posts. The swim bait bite's going to be insane. You're going to have some offshore fish. You're going to be able to go down the bank with a horny toad and a whopper plopper. That is when that lake is the most fun to fish ever. Agreed?
Yes. I wish I could fish it.
Yeah, like you'll have 12.5 pounds and you'll be last, but you will have a fantastic time.
Yeah.
Last year we were big on the let me see if I can reach it. We were big on the sonar cleaner. You still have that stuff?
Oh, the screen cleaner, yeah, man.
Screen cleaner.
It's my favorite. It's my favorite thing to hand out to people and be like, try this. And every time they're like, oh my goodness. Like, you never understand how easy it is to clean your screens with that and with our rag that comes along with it. It smells amazing too, by the way. So like, I even put it in my windshield of my car, my truck. So
yeah,
stuff is amazing.
I want to say 2021 was the year of the live scope, or the active target Guardian transducer protector. I want to say 2022 was the year of the Bass Tag screen cleaner.
Okay.
What little thing to make your life easier is 2023 going to be known for when it comes to? Can we call them are they called accessories?
Yeah, we just call them our original products, but yeah, they're accessories. What accessories?
Do we have a 2023 accessory?
One of the coolest one we've never talked about was one of my first ones we designed was just a lift kit for your floor pedal. So like, you got all these recessed floor pedals, but all these trolling motors are coming out with different thicknesses of pedal. And so you put the pedal down inside and like you're sinking like an inch sometimes. So we got a lift kit for your foot pedal. So if your foot pedal, you want it a little bit higher, you want it to be more flush. We've got a lift kit that you can order on that. So
what is that under? What would I look to find that so I can show it?
Should be just lift kit, Bass Tank lift kit.
There's the cushion. Hold on, let me search. Let me see if the search tab. Oh, there it is.
There she is. She's been around for a little bit. We just haven't.
That's not a very sexy picture. I'm not going to lie.
No, it's not.
But that's
it's not. We can do a better way of.
It's sold out right now. You got to do the back order thing. But that is to get your trolling motor pedal up off of the ground more.
Yep. Run it flush. Yeah. So you're just talking about products that just came to my mind. So. Listen, we have a whole list of things that we want to do someday. Like if we had a limited amount of time and a limited amount of money, we'd have new things coming all the time. But the problem is the development of things, especially through COVID. You can have $1 million idea and you can't touch it. You just can't get the parts and pieces put together. So there's a little bit of that.
What else you got, John? I know you're busy. You got, what is it, Lake Murray, your next derby?
Yeah, so I've been studying.
Are you pissed? You're pissed, aren't you?
I'm focused. How about that? We'll just say I'm focused. There's no room to get mad. Just got to get focused and go fish freely. So I got Murray, back-to-back Santee Cooper lakes, Santee Cooper lakes.
Yep.
And then basically back to back again, we get 1 week off and then we go to Lay Lake. So what I plan on doing, which I didn't do for the first 2 events, is I'm going to actually drive out to the Classic next week. So hey, that's what's going on. We'll be at the Classic next week. We got.
Oh, how did we forget that?
Yeah.
You have to send me. We have to send some times because I can put it out there that I'll be in the Bass Tank booth because I'll be going between Beatdown and Pro Guide, and which that's all kind of companies that work together with you guys, and the Bass Tank. You'll be there. Since you're not fishing in the Classic, you'll be answering questions a lot, talking with people.
I'll be running the whole booth. I'll be running the whole show, so I'll be at the booth pretty much the whole time.
Oh, so this is the last This is the last couple days that we get to see relaxed John.
Yeah. No, yeah. So we're not going to go overboard this year and bring a bunch of stuff like we have in the last few years. One, we have a box truck that's down, so that kind of helped. And then, but I'm going to tow my boat out there as well, and I'm going to swing by and graph, scout, however you want to say it, Murray, Santa Cooper. I don't think I'm going to do anything on Lay Lake, but I could. We'll see. I'm going to leave out Friday and go look around. I think our cutoff for Murray is Monday, next Monday. So I only got a couple days to go do some. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm preparing for this tournament. It's going to at least lay my eyeballs on them.
Yeah.
Instead of just showing up and when it's 35-mile-an-hour wind and figure you can't run around the lake, So.
Also wanted to let people know that you and Bradley have really stepped up your social media and YouTube game this year on the Bassmaster Elite Series. It is the Hookup with Soukup, and you have stuff out from Seminole and Okeechobee and really good high quality stuff over there. So make sure to follow John's and Bradley's YouTube. You're traveling with a full-time camera guy too, right? And then kind of splitting the responsibilities there.
Yeah, we are. So that's really cool. And I mean, we don't ask enough, so I appreciate you asking for me. But yeah, please go subscribe to the channel. It's a big part of our relationships with sponsors. It's a big part. It's a big deal as a professional fisherman to figure out how to monetize the business, and this is one angle that's really important to us. But we're doing everything we can to invest in the right camera guy, the editor, and all that. And yeah, it's a lot higher production than what we've done in the past. But the idea is to give everybody an insight of what we're going through in practice, tournament day, outside of it, tips and techniques, things like that. And then I basically drop some shorts of some kind every single day, a little snip of. I think I'll have one coming up here. I caught a couple 9.5 pounders the other day playing around.
I heard that rumor.
Camera. Yeah,
I heard that rumor. There's some of the look at that. Super. Yeah. I mean, high end production quality stuff.
Yeah,
he's doing a great job.
Hey,
you fish? Whoa, what is that? You caught a needlefish?
I caught a needlefish.
I didn't know you could actually land those things.
You see how big that thing is? It looked like a snake, huh? It was folded up. And you know what I found out about that needlefish? You know how we're throwing the swim worm? We're always like, they eat the needlefish. Those things are so soft and slimy. Man, it's like every big fish bait that you can think of, like a herring or a gizzard or anything like that. They're always slimy. I think bass just love them going down their throat.
Yeah, I thought they probably felt like a mackerel or something, but they don't, huh?
No, they're pretty soft, man. Soft and slimy, but they still got little teeth. At least they look like they did. I didn't even try to put my finger in there.
That's interesting. God, there was one other thing that I wanted to talk about before we wrapped up. What was it? And then I started showing your YouTube channel.
It's okay.
No, I think that was it. I mean, dude, we covered a lot.
Who's your classic pick? Who are you?
Oh, I haven't even gotten into that. I need to call Mark and I need to have him on a show.
Hey, I went out in the boat with Jeffries this weekend too, for a minute.
Oh, that was it. People you've been in the boat with. You posted a deal with Jimmy Houston.
Yeah. So this week was pretty cool. It's gonna pretend like I'm fishing a lot, but I'm really not. Tuesday, I had a day on the water. Jimmy Houston invited me out to his lake because of the Lucky Strike arrangement that I signed with Lucky Strike right before the Elites. I mean, like the week before. Matter of fact, we had to like stop jerseys and everything like that. And so, he's got his Redman spinnerbait, Lucky Strike Redman spinnerbait's been around forever, and everything that he has. So because of that, I got an invite to go out there, but we were going to meet until like 1:00. He takes care of Chris. He's got all these deer and all this stuff out there. This ranch is amazing ranch. So we went out there. I say we, Joe LeBarber, went out there and filmed about 3 or 4 hours on Arbuckle. And so caught a couple 9.5s back to back at Arbuckle. We got that all on video, which will be coming out soon. Some of the coolest fish releases that you've ever seen. We got the coolest fish release that you've ever seen. Underwater camera footage of above the water and below the water. I dropped the 9.5 pounder underwater, and she goes like this and sits for a second, and then she does it. She jumps, back turns, and we get the whole thing out of the water, and then her coming back in the water. You see the whole thing. So that's
cameras,
I don't know,
one above, one below.
No, it's one camera.
Oh, really?
He got it. He shot the thing. Had some kind of cover on the camera that allowed him to get above the water and below the water at the same time. It is. I've never seen a shot like this before. But yeah, so we got those, and then we went over to Jimmy's. It's a pond. That's not even the right way. It's a lake. I mean, it's a 110-acre lake, and there was beds everywhere, but you didn't have to worry about that because like this is grass in it that never. I don't even know what he called it, some kind of coontail, but it's not what I would ever call coontail. It was a grass that I've never seen in Oklahoma or anywhere for that matter. Get some kind of unique grass that's in it, and of course it's full of timber and it's 30 or 40 foot deep, and there's just fish everywhere. I think I caught like 50 fish in the four hours or so that we were out there.
What's the average
Jimmy's
size?
Up 3 pounders, probably average 2 to 3 pounders. So I caught 3 6s and several 5s and 4s, but ended up with a 36-pound day that day. It was pretty cool to put on the scales. Yeah.
And then you got to take the one and only Mark Jeffries, who tore himself away from the basketball court and the bowling alley to jump in the boat. Weren't you dialing them in?
Yeah, he never uses units in certain ways and capacities, and so it's Jeffries, right? So I took him out and actually went out about an hour before he got there and made sure I could find some fish to show him. And so we found some little pond right by my house. Little bitty lake, has zero potential of really big bass in it, hardly at all. I mean, as far as big amounts, but we found some fish. And he got to see the live scope in action for the first time. Or in his case, it was on his boat. He's got active target from Lorant. So we caught some fish. First time. It was his first time to see live in action and see a fish actually chase a bait. I hope so. When I take people out to training,
that was a loaded question. Because he called. I called him to see how his basketball team did because I hadn't heard anything. And he's like, "No, dude, we freaking lost. We're on to bowling." I said, "How did it go?" And he's like, "I've almost got a full team." And I'm like, "What?" And I'm like, "No, not the college bowling coach thing, the basketball." He's like, "Oh, we lost." He goes, "Dude, guess what I got to do? I got to go out with John." He goes, "Very first time in my life I've ever seen a fish on forward-facing sonar eat something." And he's like, he goes, I got to give it up to you, man. You know how Jeffries is. He goes, I got to give it up to you, man. I've heard a lot about it, and I know you've been doing this for a couple years. And I said, well, John hooked me up in 2019, so it's been more than a couple years. And he said, he goes, I got to be in the boat with the man. He goes, and it's really, really cool. He goes, and way harder than I thought it would be. He goes, but I also see the massive potential for it. He goes, so if you're good at that, he's like, it takes a lot of skill. He's like, but he just kept going on and on about how it wasn't point or click and play, that it took some ability to do it, but then also how good you were at dialing in his stuff. He's like, I had no idea what I was looking at, but John made it. He's like, I actually saw it, and we saw it react to the bait, and John caught one doing it. He's like, it was the coolest thing I've ever been a part of.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool for me too. It's cool for me too to break loose and give back to someone like Mark, who's given so much to the fishing world, and to spend a day with Jimmy Houston at his private lake. And
was Jimmy cool? I mean, did you get to laugh and giggle, or did you get to fish with him at all?
I didn't get in the same boat with him, but we rubbed boats next to each other because we both had cameras in the boats going on because we were doing content. And Jimmy is he is who he is. There's no one like Jimmy. Like he's his ability to communicate constantly, talk constantly, but entertaining, way is like I could hear him across the lake when we separated. I could just hear him going. They asked him to shoot a little thing about his Redman spinnerbait that's coming out. The original Redman spinnerbait with the old rubber skirt. They're bringing it at the Classic out, and oh, there it is. One of them, one of the colors, anyways. So yeah,
that's an actual old school Redman spinnerbait, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. So they're bringing it back. Yep. So they asked him to do a little, hey, just talk about it for a second. It's like 5 minutes later. You know what I mean? He's like, he started out, I was like, well, in high school, we used to, that's where he starts, man. He's just one of a kind entertainer, and he's genuine. Jimmy Houston's definitely 100% who he is. He's just, and I've looked up to him since I was a kid. So it was really neat opportunity.
That's a bucket list deal, John.
Yeah, 100%.
Every once in a while, or when your activity, whatever you want to call it, when you do it, you have a day where you're like, man, you know what? The last year and a half it sucked was worth it. I wouldn't say suck, but just grind, right? Was worth it for that day, that moment. Right. And you're looking around and you're like, dude, I can't believe this is actually happening. And I'm getting paid to do it. That was a crazy thing on top of it. You're like, wait a second, who's going to wake me up and tell me that this is a deal? And then you just have to play it cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
It'd be awesome to be like Jimmy, to get to the point where every day of your life, you're making someone's day. Could you imagine if everyone who met you was like, dude, guess what I did today? And then they tell that story for the next 5 years of their life. That's how you know you've arrived, right?
Yeah, no, Jimmy Houston's, he's one of the legends.
Yeah, he's been on BTL. He was actually in studio at the old deal. So yeah, make sure to check out thebasstank.com, BASSTANK.com for those March Madness deals going on there. Like I said, get in a live scope, 9-inch screen, the whole 9 yards for under $2,000, well under $2,000. You could probably have it done and installed and stuff for $2,000, wherever you choose to have that done. What else you got, John?
Nothing, man. I enjoyed it. I watched you. I followed you in the opens, rooting for you. So whenever your next event is, I'm not even keeping up with the opens on the next schedule.
Toledo Bend, the beginning, middle of April. It's going to be an absolute slugfest.
100%.
Absolute slugfest. All right, I know you're busy. You get back to work. So this has been another edition of BTL Bass Talk Live. We'll just keep you there for the outro for March 13th, 2023. Yep. Stop by the Bassmaster Classic. Look at John Soukup's social media to figure out where the Bass Tank booth is in Knoxville, and then follow me on Instagram at Matt Pangrak. I will also have the times and dates that I will be in the Bass Tank booth that you can stop by, say hi, and check out what the Bass Tank has going on. We will talk to everybody. Oh, we got a good show tomorrow, John. Side pot fishing. I've been complaining about the open. I would say complaining. I said it. I've been constructive criticism on it. Dude from side, I think his name's Luke Schrader.
It's Luke Schrader. He fished the NPFL year one.
Luke Schrader is going to jump on to talk about side pot fishing. I've talked about it before. I think mentioned it on the show before. I think he's been on with Serious Angler last year. Anyway, he's like, hey man, if you'd been signed up for side pot fishing, you would have made $383 at the last event on Eufaula. So you actually would have cashed some sort of check. And I was like, all right, it's time. Come on, explain what the heck the deal is. And then I also just kind of want to get into his story too. He's like, it's not a full show. Guess what? I think it's going to be a full show because the more I dug into it, he's a pretty interesting guy.
For sure. And a great guy.
Maybe also a live show tonight, Monday night, with a well-known Bassmaster Opens angler who may or may not have top 5. May or may not have top 5 that you follow one. So yeah, we'll see it. All right. This has been another edition of BTL. Thank you, John. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Later.